Hello everyone, and welcome to another in our series of Poking Around Phoenixville shows. I'm your host, Lou Beccaria. Thanks for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to have you join us. The Fountain Inn is the subject of today's show. The Fountain Inn on Nut Road is a very visible structure in the western end of our Phoenixville community, but not one that's talked about very much. What many of us don't know is that it's not just another tavern and restaurant, but it's a tavern and restaurant in a building with a very long and historic past, dating all the way back to the Revolutionary War. Did you know that its location at the intersection of Nut Road and Bridge Street marks the farthest point of advancement by the British troops in this area during the Revolutionary War? We'll soon learn about this and about other historic facts as our show, The Fountain Inn, its connection to the Revolutionary War, continues. And joining us now is Fran Pulio, one of the co-owners of the Fountain Inn, and Betty Nice, a lady who worked here during 3 different decades as a bartender and waitress. And we're going to hear a lot about the history of the Fountain Inn here. Fran, tell me about first of all, how long have you been one of the co-owners?
About 14 years now.
Oh, that long?
Yes.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about the history of the Fountain Inn. I understand some people have said that George Washington stopped through here. Any other famous people?
There's been a lot of rumors. We believe that George Washington and a number of Benedict Arnold and a few other people stayed here. And we also believe there was a lot of the females that supported the actual Revolutionary War, like Washington, his wife, and others that actually used this place during that particular time, because the women supported the army at that time, made the clothes, made the shoes, many other things. And it was quite a collection, as from what I understand. And the British Army supposedly camped on the street in front here, occupied this for a brief period of time as their headquarters. And the rumor is that they were removed from the building without a gunshot. The revolutionary group just put bees and German hornets in the basement, and the British decided to move out without fighting the issue.
What an interesting, creative way to solve a problem.
It solved the problem, gave them the building back at that time.
Now, I understand that there was a family named Fussell that owned the home.
Originally, back in the 1777, and then I guess they were asked to turn it into an inn, and it was a stagecoach stop at one time too, because there was a watering trough out in the front here where you could water your horses in the place. And there's a picture back on the wall. It looks in disrepair, but back then, at that time, I don't think they were concerned about paint. The front of the place has changed a little bit in the sense that the windows were enlarged to meet new codes, so you can jump out of them. They were smaller, and there actually was a fountain of running water or something in the street here. This whole area is loaded with springs. So there was a spring that ran into a fountain where you could water your horse or tie your horse or probably leave it in the back overnight.
Okay. Now, I see across the street there's a monument that depicts what, Fran?
That is a monument that was put up. That's the furthest point that the British Army actually were encamped. That means the furthest they have penetrated into Chester County. Okay. And then they retreated and went back down through Valley Forge. I guess everybody at one time during the winter was chasing each other around. Okay. But supposedly they had 2,000 or 3,000 encamped along Route 23 all the way down to Valley Forge. And I'm not sure when George came or left, but the British were around here.
Any other interesting people of note, celebrities that over the years, maybe not necessarily in the Revolutionary War, but people in more recent times that may have stopped here?
The diner has had President Nixon and President Eisenhower come in late at night. President Nixon had a daughter at the Phoenixville Hospital having a baby. I understand he came in a couple times. And Eisenhower's family lives in the area, and I understand Eisenhower was in on various occasions. That was at the Fountain Inn, which is next door. Whether they came, that was at the Val Rio Diner. Whether they came into the Fountain Inn, I don't know.
Okay, but they were definitely in the area.
Oh, yes, absolutely. They were here. Yeah, they were here.
Okay, thanks, Fran. Betty, let's turn the attention to you. Betty, I understand that you spent actually 3 different decades. You worked here, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s,
yes,
as a bartender and a little bit as a waitress.
Yes.
What was it like working here during that time when the Valley Forge Military Hospital was kind of at the peak of its activity?
It was very good. The business was excellent. And it was more of a cocktail lounge at that time. And we had the bar, and with the red velvet drapes up there, and the bar. When they put the bar in, it came from the Tally Ho in on Route in Wilmington.
Oh,
That's where the bar came from, and it was a beautiful bar. Beautiful bar. They redid it, and it was nice. The bar and the backdrop and all came from the Tally Ho, and a good business, very good business back then. Yeah.
tell us what it was like to be a bartender. That's kind of very intriguing. I understand some people say, well, you have to be part psychologist to be a bartender. So tell us about the life of a bartender.
Well, you have to have personality for one thing, and you listen to everybody's problems, and you gotta go along with them, and you gotta like people. That's the main object. You have to like people. If you're not a people person, you shouldn't be a bartender or a bar person.
How did you learn to be a bartender? Did you go to mixology school, or?
No, I didn't. I worked at Dell's, and there was a guy down there, Bill Major, that he taught me everything I knew, and he was excellent. And because I attended bar down there, and then I left there and came here. Yeah.
Now, over the 3 decades that you worked here, did you ever see any? Can you tell us about any change in clientele? Did you see the clientele change over those 3 decades, and how so?
Well, the first I had a lot of business people that came in, and then it went. Then back in the 80s, I still had quite a bit of the business people, and I had the group from Roberts Packing out in Kiverton. All that group used to come in here, and a lot of the bartenders from different places, different bars, they knew me, and they would all come in. So, I mean, it was an excellent crowd,
Sounds like it was a very enjoyable time, a very enjoyable place to work.
I loved it. I did. I really did.
Betty, thanks. We'll be back. But we're going to be joined now by Helen Jackson, who has been a long-time employee here. Helen, welcome.
Hello.
Well, tell us about your experience here, just like Betty told us a little while ago.
Well, I've back and forth from the diner over here for maybe 10 years, and like I said, it's a lot of business people that come in here, and now it's like a lot of people after work come in to just chill out or watch the games. But
why was the Fountain Inn called the Fountain Inn? Do you know that?
I'm not sure why.
Brent?
No.
I believe because it was a fountain where they watered horses. And also, at one time, we're talking about history, there's an underground room in the back here where they used to consider it in the Underground Railroad situation, where they used to store the slaves and then transport them later on. If you get into the back of this thing and dig down under, there's kind of a cave, if you want to say that.
So this was a stop on the Underground Railroad, too, in addition to its Revolutionary War history?
Well, we believe after looking at it, yes. And there was a couple churches. Most of the churches were involved in the Underground Railroad system here. And some of these buildings, like this one time, they had actually a tunnel underneath here that went to the other side of the street. So they would have the exit on top and the exit underneath in case they had to work late at night. So there is evidence of that in the building still today.
While we're talking about infrastructure kinds of things, could you tell us a little bit about the construction of the Fountain Inn? How it's constructed?
It's basically stone from the base up, but it's stone. When they used to build an old barn, it never really had a foundation underneath it. They would lay the stone on the ground, and you can see the building stands. It's amazing under 250 years. But it's just an arrangement of stone that's put down, but there's no concrete actual foundation under these buildings. And many of your German bank barns in the area are built the same way. They actually do not have a foundation under them. And they stand very well. There's some timbers that need to be replaced from time to time because the termites have a good time with a 250-year-old building. I think they ate it 100 years ago, but you still got to deal with the situation.
Must have been good. They tried to go back, maybe?
Yes, they have tried. They have tried.
How about artifacts? Have you, over the years, found any artifacts of a historical nature?
I haven't, but people have claimed in the past that out here on the road area that actually the musket balls, about the size of a dime, have washed up on the sides of the road and so forth at one time. I've seen a few of them. They're just, I wouldn't want to get hit with one. And they're about the size of a nickel, a dime. They're rough iron, basically. have come up in the road. That's about the only thing I ever heard about artifacts in the area.
Helen, let's get back to you. Could you tell us about any special events that were here that stick out in your mind during the years you were here? Any raucuses, any unusual occurrences at all? Now, don't blush. That's okay.
A little ruckus every now and again, but we get it under control. You know, just like Betty said, you have to know how to handle these people too.
You didn't tell them about Ray Mossy was a character here in Phoenixville that should be noted. I think Ray came in and rode his motorcycle around the bar, and I think Betty can attest to that.
Yes, I can.
Betty, tell us about that.
Yes. Well, he was a wild man, but a good person. I loved him. He followed me every bar I went to.
Was he sober when he did this?
No. Not really.
That made it more interesting.
Yeah, right. And he would, he was a fighter. He used to like to fight, So when he rode in with the motorcycle,
everybody else cleared out.
Everybody else cleared out, and there was a big fight. So, but he was still a nice guy. He was. And then even later on, when he calmed down, he would. When I worked here later in years, he came in. He was a steady customer.
Thanks, Betty.
You're welcome.
Fran, let's turn attention to you. You said that you've owned with your partners, have owned the bar and restaurant for about 14 years?
14 years, yes.
What kind of changes have you made in the establishment since that time?
Well, actually, we're headed more toward a restaurant here, steak and ale operation, than we are a bar. I think the days of the bar and the inn have passed us, and we'll probably do 67% more toward a restaurant and less toward the bar. The old bars in Phoenixville were places where you came in on Friday night and you got into a fight and the police hauled everybody out and walked away. And those days are changing, liability issues and so forth. This is more of a gentleman's club today than it was someone that wants to get into a fight on a Friday or Saturday night. Right. So we've gone in a new direction. There's a whole new menu here in the Fountain Inn that we're working with. Actually, our prices are about a third lower than anyone in the particular area if the public wants to try. And next door, we're going non-smoking at the diner there June 1st. And we also have an omelet bar we started here on Saturday and Sundays. And seems to be working out very well so far.
George Washington and they're going to stop in and take those omelets?
I would think so. If he was here, I think he would definitely come. The food is a lot of food for the money. You can come in and wash our fish tank we installed so people could relax. You might eat the fish. I don't know. It depends on how long the winter goes.
Okay. All right. Well, what about the future of the Fountain Inn? I know you just talked about the changes and so forth. What do you predict for the future for the Fountain Inn?
Fountain Inn will be basically more of a restaurant than a bar. It'll be more toward a steakhouse operation in the future and the omelet operation, and the bar will be downscaled on the situation because you can't drive and drink. The lunch business isn't there on the alcohol anymore. So we're going to be more toward the restaurant over the next 5 years, I would say. Family type of atmosphere. I wouldn't, you can't bring a 5-year-old all the time, but we can still accommodate people.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks, Fran.
Thank you very much.
And ladies, Helen, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Betty, thank you.
Thank you now.
It's been our pleasure to bring you this show, The Fountain Inn. I think now you'll have a better understanding of the historical significance of the Fountain Inn, dating all the way back to the Revolutionary War. And we urge you to drop in and see what's happening here with the Fran Pulio and his partners, having a whole new atmosphere here, great food, and drop in and see. So, until next time, I'm Lou Beccaria. We'll poke around Phoenixville with you again later on. Take care.